Good evening, my fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. It is I, and I am Guy, coming to you live from Applewood Station, where it is a lovely 10 degrees Celsius with clouds. I am curious. I am doing work tonight on my what's it's an essay, and she said we could do anything. So I'm going to write a song and use the AI thingy, and let's see what AI thingy thinks of this. And it's going to make me laugh and chuckle. But first, let's see if it can even say some of these words. Because I'll bet you it can't. I also think you guys can't hear it yet. We have to download it in order for it to. Ho, ho, ho. I actually used the phonetic spelling and it changed the name to Anthropocene Rise. So it changed it. I was going to write it out like Anthropocene. I'm curious what they're going to say. It's going to be funny. A box of snakes. That's a weird one. Doesn't usually do that. Okay, now that one was good. Okay, that was a good take. That was a good take. Okay, that was funny as all goes down. Okay, that was good. That was good. Okay. So he primates adapted to the top tropical parts. Okay. We know how it all starts. Primates adapted to the tropical parts. We know how it all starts at 6. 6 primates adapted to the tropical parts. 6'11", and then do 6'11". Homology, homoplasty. Homology, tetrapods. Wait. Homology, tetrapods. That's 7. We need 7. This one's good. See, that's a good one. I'm keeping this. We lose that Alex and start to eat meat. Lost. Curious how this is going to go. All right, let's see what we got. No, you're trying too hard. I love twisted wedges. So we're going to try this again. Meanwhile, let's move along to the next class, shall we? An amazingly interesting question you pose there, GZD. GZDR for Ev. I guess that'd be forever. That isn't actually a very good question. It's kind of complicated. As an aging artist, this is a thing that I have pondered. The problem is, if you could feed the AI your own art, then it's helping. That's not a problem. But if you're using just AI in general, then it's not them drawing as much anymore, so much as Picasso or, Monet. And that's kind of a thought process. That's something to think about. Again, not making a statement for or against. Just, it's interesting to ponder that. Could you use AI to assist someone who's starting to lose their ability? A good example of this one would have been Charles Schultz. As he grew older, he got the trembles. His hands started to tremble. And so his drawings were difficult because you could see the lines wiggled and he had difficulty controlling it. And it's something to think about. I'm curious. I hope I don't have to figure that out. Right? Something to think about. Haplorines, strepsirrines. Back-end processing error. An error occurred while generating the track. That's a first. May not like it because it accidentally did the same thing. See, it's really stuck on the theme. Could your art skills translate to being a police sketch artist or courtroom artist? So I've contemplated that myself many times. And I've thought about the idea of being a police sketch artist or courtroom artist. And unfortunately for me, I my drawing skills were just never up to par for the fine detail you really need for that. Although some courtroom artists are a little different. When it comes to police artists, you've really got to capture the look of the person. Courtroom artists, you just kind of have to capture the feel of the room. That's a little different. It's a good question. Um, yeah, and I think you're right. The police sketch artist would have to be, he had, because you're going to start with people saying he had scary eyes. What does that mean? You know, so you kind of have to think that through, right? I think it, it's a thing. Haplorines, strepsirines. Got like 11 syllables to write in here. Mhm. Haplorines. Haplorines are everybody else. Okay, well, if you're wondering, by the way, I'm doing homework tonight. I have to finish a project for biology, and my project is to write a poem because she's let us do all kinds of stuff and it's funny, and I think it's great. So I'm doing a poem. Strepsirrhines, haplorhines. They start to see at night because of their tapestry of light, which sounds really cool. They are definitely Star Trek ships behind me. Wait for it. Hang on. Computer, turn on warp core. I am very much a Star Trek fan. I'm just saying. So, you've been hanging out with me for a while, which is kind of cool. I appreciate that. Are you an artist as well? I doubt Paramount would ever give up the Star Trek IP. It's just too much of a cash cow. They make way too much money off of it. So I doubt seriously that they would ever give it up. However, I never thought I would see the day when Star Wars would go to Disney. So, never say never on that one, I guess. But I do know that they made kind of a ridiculous mistake by going with Paramount Plus. It didn't do them any good. They banked a lot that all of us Trekkies would get Paramount Plus, and we did. But they weren't ready to take on Netflix when they did that. And so all they did was kind of break up the market so that now we all have 20 or 30 stupid streaming services that we are all part of now, and it's just a mess. So those are my thoughts on Paramount being up for sale. I don't know. It does kind of make me wonder and worry a little bit. I mean, Star Trek has been my pillar and rock since I was a child. It's the thing. It is. But I mean, it'll always be there. It's not like we're ever going to get new episodes of the original series. We can't. We simply cannot. We'll never get new episodes of TNG. So, all of us Trekkies will just continue to watch reruns of those shows forever. And we're okay with that. So, those are my thoughts, I guess. Do you have an opinion? Is that a thing you are pondering about as well? Oh, okay. That's interesting. Mine was at the top because I just started out, so you came in here and asked questions. I'm sorry, I'm not in a drawing mode tonight. I normally draw, but I've got a paper and a project due because we're in finals. And so typically we draw, but we're not drawing tonight. But yeah. And sometimes I have other buddies on here too. And, there are other artists in the Quasar Art Collective. They're just not with me tonight. So it's just me hanging out in Denver all by myself, trying to write a song about genus Homo. Because it was a biology class. So they start to see at night. And turn 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Slowly entering the whole skeptic versus belief realm. Going ahead and, what do you mean necessarily by the skeptic versus belief? That's an interesting... I'm curious, because that's not something I've ever heard really attributed to Star Trek. And I'm an older guy. I grew up on... I was 14 when Next Generation came out. I'm actually the same age as Will Wheaton. Almost literally. He and I are 2 days apart. Our birthdays are 2 days apart. So Wesley Crusher and I are the same age, which makes watching TNG fascinating, because Will Wheaton and I was the same age as Will Wheaton, So that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. But I also was a big proponent of the original series, not very big fan on Next Gen. Since then, I have grown to really like Next Gen quite a bit. But initially, I wasn't so big on it. So I'm curious what skeptic versus belief realm. Okay, that works. Okay. So you're saying like the XY aliens, have a problem and Kirk solves the problem. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beam down. Yeah. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm willing to go with that. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree or don't agree, which is fine. I'm going to have to kind of think about that one and process it. There's almost 900 episodes of Star Trek now, and it's becoming, it's already kind of a phenomenon. But it is interesting that, like, in all of those, it feels like they have tried to do everything. You know what I mean? Like, long form storytelling, short form storytelling. But the thing that they seem to want to hold on to is the hope, right? Which is kind of one of the things that keeps the Trekkies with it. So I can see kind of where you're coming from. You've got kind of this sort of setup where the worlds they believe it's a god thing. They believe the gods have made it stop raining. And Kirk's like, well, we'll fix this problem. Well, we're not gods. We're technology. It's all about technology. Which almost was directly addressed in the Star Trek episode, the TNG episode, Who Watches the Watchers, which they specifically talk about that particular thing. It's a good episode. I also think that if you kind of look at Children of the Comet, which is an episode of Strange New Worlds, they kind of blur the line a little bit, making it even seem like the Clark law here is being tinkered with a little bit. Clark law is Arthur C. Clarke's, who was the science fiction writer. That was his law that any significantly advanced intelligence will be indistinguishable from magic. So any higher intelligence, more advanced creature will just be generating magic to the less advanced people as far as they're concerned. But in reality, it's always just technology. And Star Trek leans heavily on that Clark law. And what you're talking about is, you're talking a lot about that particular setup, which lying on the Clark law, it's interesting. Climate changes. The right means. All right. Hmm. Curious as to what your thought processes are on the taking that and contrasting it with the remainder of the Star Trek universe. So, I mean, I kind of go for that particular thought process, but what are your thoughts in contrasting that with the other Star Treks? You don't like them at all? Yeah, that's what I was just curious. What's the contrast? From my point of view, I see what you're kind of headed for on these. Makes total sense, but I kind of feel like there's not a lot of, I mean, it still feels like we've got kind of that going on with the other Star Treks. So, just a curiosity. Eh, you could just not like them. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Sometimes, yeah, just don't like a thing. Makes total sense to me. I mean, oh, okay. Hmm. So, in other words, you kind of liked it when the aliens were separate. They weren't, the discussion was between us and the aliens. I get it. as opposed to now us and aliens versus some other thing. That's fair. Absolutely fair. I'll go with that. Okay, losing our tails, standing up right now. Standing up right now. I'm counting syllables, guys. We are coming down, losing our tails, standing up right I feel like we're out of okay. Yeah. Yeah, that seems like I can totally follow that. Permian, Pyramid, Jurassic, Cretaceous, Paleocene, Eocene, oh my god, Oligocene, Miocene. Hmm. It's the Pleistocene. It's the maybe it's the Miocene. The Miocene. Cenozoic. So we're going to move on to the hominids. Hominins. Because hominins. I'm moving through my notes pretty quickly. Why do we not have a bio? Yeah.
Question, which AI thing did you use? And then I'm probably going to sleep really soon.
Archaeology. Cultural Anth. Don't know why I don't have a biology there. I mean for songwriting?
Yeah, for generating the not the songwriting, but the musical creation part.
UDIO.
UDIO.
UDIO. UDIO, bro.
UDIO.com. Okay. I am going to sleep really soon.
All right, you do that. I am writing a song for biology. Why 5 molars? Bowl-shaped pelvis is. Why 5 molars? Okay, so that first one needs to be bowl-shaped pelvis. Brachiating arms, valgus knees, and something. Valgus knees and something. We got to come up with something here, guys. Valgus knees and So Bellatrix Rising is, I'm writing it now, even as we speak. Does it say that on the bottom there? I don't know where I've got that. Let me switch to this. I'll give you some information on this. So the answer is the story of Bellatrix Rising is about 500 years from now. Well, shortly after now, a large war was going on above the earth, but we couldn't see it. And the war was resolved as part of the story, but unfortunately it destroyed the earth. So the Federation, whatever you want to call that, with the aliens, all of the alien groups that were in this federated group rescued as many people as they could, which ended up being roughly about 65,000. But the 65,000 people that they rescued, these people didn't, or I guess I should say the aliens, didn't know classes of people or anything. So they took pretty much a sampling of 35,000 people from all over the place. So we have a mixed bag of races as far as humans are concerned, and not a lot of evolution yet, but there will be. And then there's a couple of variants that go with this. Of course, there are always outliers, but the comic itself is, I'm looking for artwork for you so I can show you. I'm just going into, I was in a different folder. But yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of different racial groups. 2 characters, 1 Asian. The other one's probably, depending on who it was, I don't know. But I mean, you probably saw her. She's my captain. And she's Asian. But she's specifically from a divergent group. So, like, from that group of 65,000, there was a group of people that insisted on keeping their culture clean and untainted, and they left. And over the 500 years, their culture ultimately degraded and fell apart. And she was amongst the last generation of that culture. And when it fell apart, the Federation, the good guy, whatever you want to call it, came in and rescued all of them. And so that was, she then joined the Federation because she, they rescued her. So, but as far as the thing is that I think that I am definitely of the world of which everybody's just kind of scooped together into one unit. Oh, I kind of like this new color combo. So, yeah, and of course, this is their spaceship. This is the kitty wake. So, kind of moving along there on that one. And everybody on the ship would be, all the main characters would be these guys here. So I do have a mixture of races, cultures. I even have aliens. I think this is that older uniform. Yeah, it doesn't have the retro thrusters backs. I should really redraw this someday. So, but I do. I have a mixture of the races and the cultures and everything like that on here. Still kind of hold that uniform to some degree, though. It's not a bad uniform, just now it has the little RC thrusters on it. Over the summer, my school, I'll be out of school, and it would be. So, my original story, by the way, let me finish that thought. I'm going to leave school, I'll be out of school for the summer, and while I'm out of school, I'm going to complete the first episode of Bellatrix Rising. Right now, there's only one episode out there, but if you wish to read it, it's up there for free right here. These are all of the comics for the people who tend to be on the normally they're on our show. Mine is that red one there. And you can just go to globalcomics.com / and then you have to, I think, put a C in there. Looks like you have to put a C in there. And then / and then Bellatrix Rising. And you can find the first episodes there and a couple of side stories and get a good idea of what my story is about. I am a Star Trek fan. Originally, Bellatrix Rising was a Star Trek fanfic. And somewhere along the line, my dad and I were talking about the comic, and I was perfectly content making a Star Trek fanfic. And he was like, "You can't make any money off of a Star Trek fanfic." And he goes, "Why don't you just change the uniforms, you never used Kirk, Spock, and McCoy or anything like that?" No. Because my fanfic was all about a different ship. Somebody had once, a friend of mine and I've been sitting around, and, why is it always the Enterprise? Why is it always the Enterprise? Why can't they just make Star Trek the rest of the Federation? And so that sort of started me with my fanfic that had nothing to do with anybody important in Star Trek. And in fact, that was kind of the fun of it, was that it was a non-important spacecraft. It was, one of the little destroyers that goes around and does stuff. So then I changed everything around, and I'm using the same stories because I like the moral stories. I like moral dilemmas. So I set up generally the story around a moral dilemma, and then explore the moral dilemma with my characters. And that was a lot of what I did, or what I was doing with Tamerlane, which is the comic I was doing before this. And so now we're on Bellatrix Rising, and that's where we are. So Bellatrix Rising, of course, the funny part about this was I was gonna literally change the uniforms and change the ships and change all the proper names. But then, I was like, COVID started, and so I was like, you know what? I'll just spend COVID doing this, and however long COVID takes, it's going to take like a year or a month or so. So I'm going to just go with it. Yeah, it took more than that. It took like a year and a half, 2 years before they finally started letting up. The newer uniforms now have the RC thrusters right here. These are so that if you get spaced for whatever reason, if you by some horrible reason get spaced and knocked out into deep space, your uniform will help keep you alive. It only has about 2 hours worth of life support, but it's got 2 hours worth of life support. So it can keep you alive for 2 hours if you get spaced. I'm actually looking forward to getting back to work. On the comic. Yep. So the world building document is pretty much a lot of the stuff that I did for the world building, which took place during COVID. And I, redid everything and kind of reworked stuff and built a lot of the underlying world. And this is before I realized that really I'm a cultural anthropologist. That's really what I am. I'm fascinated by cultures. I'm fascinated by interactions between people. And I have been expressing that through my comics and didn't realize that that was where my heart was, so to speak. But because of that, how I realized it was with that world building document. I started writing that document and I just got deep into everything, religions and belief systems. And I wrote their constitution. I mean, like all of this stuff that I may or may not ever need, but in the story, it just became so fascinating to me. It became so interesting. So much of it was incredible and like so fascinating. The star maps. I spent an inordinate amount of time on those star maps. If my buddy Brent were here, he's one of the routine watchers of this stream, but he's an hour up on me, so he's already gone to bed because he works tomorrow. Brent would make comments about no more star maps because we spent so much time on the star maps because I wanted to be accurate. And so now my star maps are roughly about 2 to 3 light years off from real, honest to goodness maps of space. So it's kind of an interesting thing, Pieces, parts, maps. So in here, like as an example, here's a map of our galaxy, and we really are right about here in our galaxy, right? And I mean, there really is a gap in the arm there. There's a gap in the arm here. There's this gap here, and like there's this item over here. Like all of these things are real. And then you get into our quadrant, and here's where Earth is, right here in the Commonwealth and the Unity and Pleiades, the Pleiades cluster, and this is what's left of Betelgeuse, and all of this is really like the stuff around us. Like this Cygnus Rift really exists. This Cygnus X region right here, this is where a huge black hole lives, and it's just kind of going that way. And this is the end of the spur of the coreward border of Orion, stuff like that. If we go to the next one, this is a close-up of where we are. This is where the end of Betelgeuse is. It's blown up in my document. And here's Pleiades, right? All of the stars of the Seven Sisters are here. And then here's Earth, which is an exclusion zone now, so you can't go there. But the bad guys in my story, live here in the Hyades star cluster. And my good guys live around the star Bellatrix, which is the left shoulder of Orion. And all of the stars that are around that area, right? And then down here is a top-down view of all of the stars of Bellatrix, of the Unity, which is the good guys, so to speak. And right over here are the stars of what we called the other side of the wall, or the control zone, exclusion zone. So, yeah. I've been kind of putting this together. Finally, kind of. Oh, yeah, I should do this. This would be how you'd look at the Unity in a 3D sort of way. So, Bellatrix is in the center, right here. And this is sort of an orientation grid that shows that leading means to the front of the arm of the galaxy. Trailing, of course, would be to the back of the arm. Coreward is towards the core of the galaxy, and edgeward, of course, to the edge of the galaxy. Then they just put north and south. Might as well, right? North being the top of the galaxy, and south being the bottom of the galaxy, for lack of a better term. So orienting yourself that way, Earth is coreward quite a ways. So if you look at it from the point of view of the galactic map, Earth is about 25 light years. Well, no, it's more than that. 250 light years. It's 250 light years coreward. So, from Bellatrix. And down here on the bottom of the grid, it sort of shows where they are relative to one another, but they're often taller. Like some are higher than others, or some stars are lower. These are all real stars. Like, all of these are real stars. The stars that are around Bellatrix. I just changed their names because I didn't think anybody would, I live on HD 50532. Nobody would say that. They're going to call it Bob. People are going to name things because they can't stand it being, whatever. And the colors of the stars are accurate to the colors of the stars as they were, with each star being representative of sort of their temperature variant. So the wall then is that red thing there. That's actually hydrogen gas, H1 hydrogen, in a wall, which for some reason the area that we're in is a bubble. And in that bubble is not a lot. But then there's it's a bubble in the hydrogen gas. And at some point you hit the end of that bubble, and that's the end of the bubble. About 250 something light years from us is this wall of hydrogen gas, which doesn't affect much. It just, ships have to slow down in my story when they go past the wall. They can't go their full, science fiction-y space speed. So, anyway, that's why it's an ongoing joke that I'm not allowed to do star maps anymore, because I spent forever on these star maps. And I'm very proud of them. So, it's like, not allowed to mess with them anymore. Not allowed to touch them. Not allowed to mess with them and do anything anymore. It's kind of sad. And I think it's interesting that back here in the back part of the wall is a lot of yellow stars. Yellow stars tend to be G-class stars. They tend to be something, planets that are more likely to have stuff there. There's this clump of them right in here. All in the pins. So, there you go. That's a tour of my world. And I will get back to creating weird and strange. So in my story, or just in general? In my story, I have two different engine. Well, there are three different engine types, but the real space engine we can leave to leave it out at this point in time. There are two types of engine types. Um, there is the faster than light engine, but it's not too fast. So it takes weeks to travel between stars. Um, it takes weeks instead of taking years. And depending on what the area is, you may have to, like I said, with the wall, you'd have to slow down past the wall because it's just too much hydrogen gas, and that makes it dangerous to travel fast. So nobody travels fast on the other side of the wall. On the flip side, you have a folding engine, but the problem is that the folding engine requires an engine that's 2 kilometers long. So a massive 2 kilometer long engine can't really be stuck on the back of a little ship. So instead, in my story, you have two different types of spacecraft. You have your sort of putter around and do stuff in this local area spacecraft, and then you have what they call a home ship. And the home ship, let's see if I can find a picture of the home ships. The home ships are these huge cities on the top of a fold drive, effectively. So that all the ships come in and they all dock into the home ship, and the whole home ship folds space and goes somewhere else. And then it appears and then lets all the little ships out to do all their things. They do their jobs, they do whatever needs to happen. If you will, my story then has a bunch of stories, right? Because that's kind of really the truth, is that the home ships do one thing and the stories do another. The little guys wander around and do other things and stuff like that. I'm looking around to see if I can find a home ship picture. I do have a time dilation budget. So when you're using the Mason Telly engines, those are the engines that get them around slightly more than not slightly more than light speed. They can go up to roughly about 3.9 times the speed of light. Which is fast enough that you can be traveling at 186 light years per day. That's still a pretty good clip. So it's not like that's 2 days to Earth, give or take. But the problem is that the various races in my story have a different tolerance to this mythical space travel. And so they can only go so fast before they drop out. And so because of that, right off the bat, we lose two of the races, the AIs and the Najor, which are two of the the races. They can't continue to operate, and so they shut down. And so most of the time when you're traveling out there, they don't travel much past, say, 1.0 or 2.0 out here, which is about 9 light years a day. Um, every day you travel about 9 light years. That's enough to get you, reasonably far along, but it's not dangerous to people. 3.95 is pretty much the highest speed that a human has ever gone. And the Shakrana, which is another type of alien in my story, can make it to 4.1. Um, and then my really creepy bad guys, the Weirn, for some reason can make it all the way up to 7. And so they can travel further using this engine because of just their build. But they're also not coherent, really. So they're not a coherent species. They're not intelligent anymore. So that's that engine. Just hoping I can find. Hmm. Just the name that I picked has nothing really to do with China or Britain. Um, I actually will sometimes go to a random name generator because I'll end up in the same patterns. I'll keep doing the same things and saying the same things over and over and over. And so, and it starts to bother me because it feels artificial. So to some degree, I'm sure there are a lot of people who really like to create a world that's similar, but I feel like people would just be all over the place. So I just went to a random name generator and said, generate a bunch of names for uh, a country, a type of country, like a federation or a group of countries, and picked Commonwealth because it seems like that it was an interesting sort of thing. And, to the Commonwealth, they're the good guys, and the Unity is the bad guys. To the Unity, the Commonwealth is the bad guys. So it all depends on how you look at it in that particular instance to each one of those. I'm trying to see if. So that's where that's kind of going, I guess. The complete story here. So, yep. There we go. That's a home ship. I'll bring it up. Right? So, that's what the home ships look like. That actually happens to be the hero's home ship, the Polaris. Two sides of the same coin. Yeah, and in light of that, everybody thinks that they're the hero. Even in our current conflicts, in World War II, the Japanese and the Germans were the heroes to themselves. They were doing the right thing, even though it is pretty clear they were not doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about, and this is part of the moral dilemmas that I like to explore. And part of the reason why I'm getting into cultural anthropology. as well. Because the truth is that we all do the right thing until we're forced to not do the right thing anymore. At that point in time, we have to figure out what is the least destructive thing to do. And in each one of these cases, think about it from a lot of different directions. Japan had been pushed, specifically Japan had been pushed by fear into attacking China. And of course, they took it too far. They took it way too far. I'm not justifying Japan in any way. I'm just observing that, driven by fear of not having enough resources, fear of not having enough abilities to do the things that needed to be done in the industrial era, they decided to attack China and Korea, and Germany was doing the same thing. They had lost World War I, and Hitler got in there as chancellor and managed to terrify the people enough that they started turning against effectively the other people that were in their country. So, to me, I mean, nobody in Germany was sitting there going, we're bad guys. You know, like, they weren't sitting there being happy about it. There was something that made them think, we're doing the right thing, even though this is horrible and terrible. We're doing the right thing because we've got to do X, Y, or Z, whatever is the story. So that kind of is some of the stuff that I like to work with. And again, this isn't an apology. I'm not even looking to justify anything. My biggest interest is, what makes someone decide to do horrible, horrible things? That's interesting to me. Not just a someone, but a people, right? What makes an entire group of people? Wow, what happened here? They just closed down the road just outside our house. That's pretty brutal. Yeah. Well, and it's which piece of the story do you want to go to? I mean, because it's like everything in history, it's weaving together all of these bits and pieces that you can see from this point to this point, and from this point to this point. There was a logic behind it. It led them to do horrible things, but they went from hanging out and being normal people like you and me to, we're going to eradicate all of these people. And there are mechanisms that you can see that people use to further things and further thoughts. One of them is fear. Drumming up fear. I'm seeing a lot of it in our politics here in the United States. There's a lot of fear. And that's and I'm not even talking about which political side. Both political sides are using fear to try to keep the people afraid so that they continue to propel forward towards these things. And I even believe firmly that the people in the very core of this, the people who are starting this, have drummed up their own fear. Somehow they've become fearful themselves. And so they do that. I've seen the other function that's fascinating is dehumanization. The Japanese did not see the Chinese as humans. it wasn't even a matter of them not seeing them as good as Japanese. They actually dehumanized them. We dehumanized the Japanese. Um, and it doesn't really matter whether we're talking about, you call them animals. That's not necessarily the dehumanization that occurs. Sometimes the dehumanization is very straight up. They're not cultured like us. This is how the Americans convinced themselves to wipe out the Native American Indians. For that matter, just about any of the cultures that were indigenous. You'd have to look at the Spanish conquistadores that did the same thing. It was just part of the structure of what they were thinking at the time, and they go down to Mexico and they come up against the Aztecs and the Maya and say, well, these guys are obviously not cultured like us, and that makes them decide it's okay to destroy their culture and destroy the people. So, I mean, it's part of dehumanizing, or deculturizing, I guess, probably is better. The current version of Shogun that's running right now has an very interesting moment where the main character, who's an English navigator, the main character is brought to Osaka, which is a metropolis. And up until he's brought to Osaka, he is of the opinion that, the Japanese are cute and they've got nice swords, but we've got cannon, and we're also far more advanced than they are because our cities. And then they roll into Osaka, and Osaka is bigger, cleaner, well-run, well-ordered. Compared to London, it is obviously decades, if not maybe a century ahead of where London is. And even the main character realizes he's out of his league. And that's a thing. Now you're the dehumanized, which is of course the point of Shogun all the way across, is dehumanizing the foreigners. They're dehumanizing them or deculturizing them because they're afraid and they want to keep those people away. So they deculture them. Just interesting. I find all of that stuff fascinating, and I want to explore it. And that's what I explore in my comic. None of it, at no time, I mean, I want to be extraordinarily clear, at no time am I justifying any of these things. I'm not apologizing for anything. But I also know that if we don't identify it and put a flag on it, it becomes pretty easy to manipulate us into doing it again. And again. And again. And we do it over and over and over. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about, President, whoever, it doesn't really matter. One of the presidents of the United States who just decided to wipe out the Native Americans. It doesn't matter whether you're Pol Pot. All of those people, Hitler, all of those people, each one of those, and I'm not trying to compare these, by the way, all of those used fear as a tool to convince the people to deculturize the other people, thus giving them an ability to do inhumane things that normally we wouldn't do. And truthfully, you think about who we all are as people. The majority of us, and I'd even hazard to say 99% of us, would rather just watch TV, do our jobs, go to work, do something cool, play games, and hang out with our buddies. You know, the majority of us don't want to go to war. The majority of us don't want to hurt other people. We're good. You know, we can watch our movies, we can play our games, we hang out with our friends, and that's a perfectly reasonable life. So there has to be something that pushes people into doing these bizarre things. Because even the Japanese, you know, they were perfectly content. Right? Right, exactly. You go to South Africa and it's like, wait, you mean they have a city? Where are the straw huts? You know, I remember doing the same thing. I did the same thing as a child. Like, there was like just I didn't comprehend it. We weren't all the same. It was America and the rest of the world, you know. And now I've been in Japan, I've lived in Japan, and honestly, we're not as good. Japan's ahead of us. Like, little things. All of they've got a machine that makes rice, and you can buy one, and it just makes perfect sushi rice every time. I actually bought one, and now I have it in my kitchen downstairs. But little things like all of their toilets have little sinks on the back. So you flush the toilet and wash your hands right there. The little toilet roll holders, you know, the things that hold your toilet paper. They just have these two little arms like this, and they're spring loaded and they go like this. So when your toilet paper roll is empty, you just take a new one and push up from the bottom, and it snaps into place, and the old roll just pops right out into the trash can. I'm like, why don't we have that? Why am I fighting with that little cylinder thing the entire time? I mean, it's not just a matter of they've got better technology than we do. Their lives are calmer, nicer, peacefuler. They spend time thinking about themselves and making themselves good people. They spend time with their neighbors. They spend time working together to clean up a neighborhood. I never saw so much as so much as a can of trash anywhere in any Japanese city. They're all clean. And it's because the people clean it. It's not because nobody throws their trash on the ground. Why would you do that? Which brings me to kind of another part of culture that I'm seeing, and that is individualism is great, but sometimes you take it too far. Like, we all need to remember that we're part of a structure and that people live together and we work together and we have to take care of each other. It's not just a matter of taking care of ourselves. We've got to take care of each other. And that's something that people have a hard time remembering and doing. And sometimes we get to the point where hardship hits and we all go, but what about me? Without thinking that all of us are in this together. We're all suffering hardships. That one's dangerous as well. Like, think about the things that we all do as people. One of the big problems with us is that, especially Americans and probably Australians to a degree, is that we're very unaware. We're very self-located. I don't want to say self-centered. That's loaded. Self-located, as in we don't really think very far beyond us. We're the main character in the TV shows all the time. We're always the John Waynes. We're always the Captain Kirk's. Well, Captain Kirk's a little different because I think that that's one of the things that Gene Roddenberry started talking about later on was it's not about Captain Kirk. It's about the whole crew working together. And it's one of the reasons why I like Strange New Worlds the most is because Captain Pike and all of his crew, he's constantly working together with his crew. And that, it's never about Captain Pike saving the day. It's about the entire crew of the Enterprise saving the day. All of them are doing pieces. The entire crew is pulling together to fix this problem, which is something we really lack a lot in our culture. Everything from business all the way through to just everyday lives. We are not thinking about the other people. With business, I could care less whether your business makes it. But there used to be a time where in business, you'd get franchised. You'd come into the business and they would say, here's what we're trying to do as a team. And you'd say, okay, I'm going to do my part to make this team work. And then they get in there and then the boss says, no, just do your part. Don't pay attention to anything else. Don't talk to anybody else, just you. And that disenfranchises them. That takes them right out of it. Who wants to stay there? It's all about us, but it's not just about like us. It's about franchisement, positive, getting a bunch of people together to work towards a goal positively is so much better than by fear and stuff like that. So it's the core of what I'm trying to talk about in my stories. It's the core of what we're discussing in Bellatrix Rising and kind of where I'm headed. Hey, George. How you doing? My cat is starting to patrol. He's hoping that we will go to bed soon. He likes to sit on my chest. That's his thing. I go to bed, I lay down, I'm all comfortable, and then he comes up and sits on my chest and gets in front of my book or gets in front of my phone. It's like, no, it's my turn. You will scratch me now. Because George is George. Right, George? You are you. Boot. So, I think that's always fascinating too. And I think that you talk about different things. I have been in college this last semester. This is my first semester in my senior year, so to speak. It's a long story. I had a bachelor's degree, but it was with a tech college, and the tech colleges turned out to be fraudulent, and so my bachelor's degree was revoked. So I'm back in school now to get a bachelor's degree so that I can continue on, and I'm going to actually go on ahead and move forward and get my doctorate. But I've been looking at the cultures that show up on a college campus. We've got clearly people that are of Muslim descent. We've got multiple people of color. It's very egalitarian. Egalitarian is what I'm after. Egalitarian. Even just in my class, we were in our cultural anthropology class and talking about all of the different cultures in that room, just in that room, and the different experiences that we all had in life and the different places we've all been. I was a junior high teacher in Japan, which is a weird thing to say. Not weird, other than it's a thing. It's really interesting. It was something I did. And everybody in that room had a story. And that was cool. Everybody in that room had a story. We all have a story. What is our story? So, you have gotten me on a soapbox, my friend. I'm so sorry. Oh, man. And we are at 11 o'clock. I only broadcast for 2 hours, but I will be back tomorrow night. I don't know if at the same time. I don't know if you want to come back tomorrow night and keep talking to me, but tomorrow night I'll be at the end of these papers that need to be written, so I only have one more night of this before I move on to I'm clear. These are the last 2 papers that I need to write. One's for archaeology and one's for biological anthropology. And then I'm clear. I've already written my cultural anthropology paper and turned it in. And I've got the chapter 12 test for Japanese. So that's it. And then I'm clear for this semester. And then I start my my summer, where we're going to continue writing Bellatrix Rising. We will get it out the door. I can sit here and talk like Kirk and say things like, do you know what Bellatrix Rising is? I have spent my life perfecting my Captain Kirk. I know, probably wasted more time than I needed to. Oh, I would love to do that. Wouldn't that be fun? Oh, yeah. I would tell the story of a Star Trek red shirt. I could do that. Man, that'd be cool. What is the story of a red shirt? Okay, so out there is out there on the internets, on the interwebs, there is a beautiful little 8-page comic called Green Leader. I'm going to see if I can't figure out. I'm looking for it real quick here. Hang on. It's by Daniel Warren Johnson. It's 11 pages long. It has no text, no dialogue. And it is simply the story of an X-Wing pilot who is married to an A-Wing pilot. And they are part of that final battle over Endor. And it's called Green Leader, and it's Daniel Warren Johnson. And it is exactly what you're talking about. It's the story of an X-Wing pilot and an A-Wing pilot in the middle of the battle over Endor. And there's no dialogue. There's no speaking. There's, nobody says anything. And it is super emotional and absolutely incredible and so cool and well done. And he manages to evoke a lot without having to actually use text and dialogue. It's something that I actually I love this. It's one of my favorite little stories, So, anyway, that's something that, and maybe that's my version of Green Leader, huh? Like, that wouldn't be a bad story. Oh man, you've started me on something. GZ, You got me started on something, because that'd be kind of cool. Although, to a degree, Star Trek already explored it a little bit. If you want to think about that, there's an episode in the original series called Balance of Terror, and it is with the Enterprise discovering the Romulans again, or rediscovering the Romulans, if you will. And it's got a story that's very similar. It's got a red shirt sub story, which is interesting. Man, that'd be good though, wouldn't it? All right. Unfortunately, tomorrow is fortunately, tomorrow is my last morning of 6 a.m., which, I'm glad to not be getting up at 6 a.m. anymore. I have my biology class is at 8, and I knew it was going to be a problem when I signed up for it, but it was the only one I could take. And so it's 6 a.m. for me tomorrow morning, so I'm going to have to roll. However, if you show up again tomorrow night about 2 hours ago this time, so 9 o'clock Mountain Time, I should be on again. In theory, I should be on. Oh, Ray, you showed up just in time for me to leave. That's all right. You'll be here. How you doing, Ray? I'll say hi to you for a minute or two. We can chat for a minute. But I got to go to bed because tomorrow morning is my last 6 a.m. class. Well, my last 8 a.m. class. But I have to get up at 6 to make it there because it's rush hour through the entire, that's rush hour to get to college. And so getting to the campus, I'm in the campus I'm a downtown campus. So I got to go all the way downtown. So I got to be up with the Dawn Patrol. But Ray will be, I know Ray, you'll see me again later. Like Friday. I'll be on Friday at night for you. If I'm right here, let me check. Yeah, because it's like what? 3 in the afternoon for you? Is it 3 in the afternoon or is it 1 in the afternoon? Right. Yeah, you're not wrong there either, my friend. You're not wrong there either. So, all right, guys. Here's you're in New York. So 1 a.m. there. And 1 p.m. You guys, you two are both on the exact opposite sides of the globe. Check you guys out. That's awesome. So, all right. Then back up the hours 2 for us. So I'll be on again tomorrow night at 11 your time. And for Ray, I'll be at 11 a.m. tomorrow as well. Are you not in school today, Ray? Are you not headed for school? GZ Ray is a regular, so that's I don't actually have the ability to creepily know where everybody is. Ray is a regular on my streams, so you're at school. Ray, don't get in trouble because of me. Don't get in trouble because of me. All right. But I am going to go to bed. It's been great talking to you guys. And I agree with you, GZ, that is one of the failings of the larger parts of these super battles, Haha, let's see how many people we can and you don't think about the individuals who are in there. Although Star Trek has done that in the past, it just isn't doing it now. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's all right. All right. We have received 100 messages today with Restream Chat. Thanks, guys. So I'll be back on again in 22 hours. And then I'll be on again then Friday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, which would be 11 a.m. New York time, and 11 p.m. in Mongolia. So you guys are awesome. I'm really glad to have you guys all here. I hope to see you guys again. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Good night, everybody.